The purpose of these lessons is to show you the logic behind the most basic Chinese characters, beginning with the simplest pictograms and later combining these elements to create more complex characters. If you haven't watched Lesson 1, I would recommend that you do so. Keep in mind that these are not conversation lessons. I am merely arranging Chinese characters into groups with a common component, so that they are easier to memorize in case you are attempting to learn this language. And by knowing the origin of a character, it's often very helpful in understanding its various connotations today. Today's lesson is on Chinese numbers. The number 1 was introduced in Lesson 3. It's a simple horizontal line. However, as we found out, it has a slight pronunciation problem of 3 different tones. First tone, when counting, 1, 2, 3. Second tone, before a fourth tone. And fourth tone, before the other tones. The name for this type of character is heteronym. An English example would be T-E-A-R, a tear ran down his face, or tear the letter to pieces. But this term is so unfamiliar to most students that I'm going to go with a direct translation from Chinese, split sound character. It splits into more than one pronunciation. So far, we've seen 3 characters that fall into this category. Number 1, E-E-E. Negative, bu, bu. And the clarifying possessive de, di. Now let's continue with today's lesson on numbers. If we add the character for person or human, ren, as a phonetic to the number 1, yi, we can create the number for thousand, pronounced first tone, qian, qian. This is a phono-semantic compound, with the horizontal 1 indicating that this is a unit of measurement. The pronunciation qian may not sound very similar to ren, but when you recall that the Beijing dialect was not always the official language of China, things start to make more sense. The pronunciation of thousand, qian, is an example. Southern China is more mountainous, and the people more isolated, so the southern dialects have retained much more of the original sound of ancient Chinese than the northern dialects. The north of China, where Beijing is located, is basically a flat plain, which means communication and intermingling is common and language change more rapid. This explains why ancient poems still rhyme in the southern dialects, but not so much when read in northern dialects. In the southern areas of Fujian and Taiwan, the formal pronunciation of person or human is jin, jin, which is much older and much closer to the original pronunciation of thousand, qian, jin. Compare also the word ginseng, a medicinal root shaped somewhat like a human body. The first syllable, jin, is the southern Chinese pronunciation for the person character that we learned in Lesson 1. In other words, the modern Beijing standard has diverged significantly from when the phonetic for thousand was chosen. An example of this new character would be 1,000本书, 1,000 books. The number 10 looks quite similar to the number for thousand. It's composed of a vertical, notched stick with a horizontal crossbar indicating a unit of measurement. This character is pronounced second tone, shi, shi. Certain numbers have cultural significance, and to the Chinese, the number 10 indicates perfection or completeness, supposedly because it's the total number of our fingers. with this sense of the number, we can make the expression 十足, 十足, meaning completely or extremely. A person described as 十足的天才 would be an absolute genius, for example. Now let's look at the number 2. Like number 1, it's composed of 2 horizontal lines. It's pronounced fourth tone, 二, 二. This is the same retroflex R sound we mentioned in lesson 1. The Mandarin R sound is like the G in prestige or the S in television, except that the tongue curls back much farther. 二, 二. When writing this number, remember to make the upper line shorter so that it does not look like an equal sign. A common phrase using this character is 二手, 二手, used to describe second-hand goods or second-hand smoke, also known as passive smoking. Once we know the character for number 2, we can learn the character for up, above, on top of, or even the verb to go up, pronounced fourth tone, 上, 上. Originally, this character was the same as the number 2. Later it was changed to 1 horizontal and 1 vertical line. And later still, another line was added until arriving at the modern 3-stroke character. This character is extremely useful, either as a preposition, noun, or verb. Chinese grammar is very fluid in this way. For example, 上天 as a noun means heaven or God. As a verb, it means to float up into the sky. Turn it around and it becomes a preposition, 天上, in the sky or in the heavens. As I explained in lesson 4, before paper was invented, books in ancient China were made of dried bamboo slips strung together. In the Western world, books were made from parchment, thin sheets of sheep or goat hide, and stored in rolls. For this reason, in English we say, I read this in a book. Inside, a flexible roll of animal skin. But a Chinese would naturally say, I read this on a book, a hard strip of bamboo. Despite the fact that nearly all books are printed on paper today, the use of the prepositions has remained the same into modern times. So, a Chinese speaker would say 书上 to express in a book. Turn the characters around, 上书, and it now means to submit a petition, which of course would be to a superior, hence the use of 上. Even the English verb submit implies that you are in an inferior position making a request. Languages may differ, but human society remains the same. Let's move on to our next character, also based on the number 2, but with the 2 strokes reversed. The upper horizontal line is longer than the lower one. This is the opposite of 上. This new character for under, below, or the verb to go down, descend, is pronounced fourth tone, 下, 下. As with the character for above, the ideogram for below, go down, was originally the reverse of number 2. Later it was changed to 1 horizontal plus 1 vertical line. And finally, another dot-like mark was added to give us the modern 3-stroke character. When used with the character for sky, 天下, 天下, it means the whole world, similar to the English expression under the sun, as in there's nothing new under the sun. One very common usage of 下 is to express how many times to perform an action. For example, 拍一下, tap 1 time. This combination, 一下, can also express the idea of only a little, or just for a moment, such as a seated elderly person extending an arm and saying, 扶一下, please help me stand up. with "me stand up, please" understood from the tone of voice and the meaning of "fu" to assist. Another phrase is 上 and 下 together. 上下, meaning more or less or about. For example, 1000人上下, roughly 1,000 people. Another common expression is 下手, 下手, which can mean either A, to start doing something, or B, to commit a crime. Suggestive of the English expression to get down to it, or get down to the task at hand, lawful or otherwise. Now that we know the numbers 1, 2, 10, 100, and 1,000, we must introduce one more character for 2. All languages, English included, have their little quirks or oddities regarding numbers. For example, in English we say 13, 14, 15, but not 1-teen and 2-teen for 11 and 12. English also has words with limitations, such as all, every, and among, referring to 3 or more, while both and between correctly refer only to 2. So we can forgive Chinese for having a special character for 2. Pronounced third tone, 两, 两. This ideogram is a depiction of the yokes of a 2-horse cart or chariot, with an added number 1 above to indicate it's a unit of measurement. The same horizontal stroke we found in 10, 100, and 1,000. It has been speculated that once both horses had been unhitched, these yokes and crossbar could serve as a primitive set of scales for weighing goods for sale. This new character, 两, is used with measure words. 2 books would normally be expressed as 2本书, not 2本书. 200 would be 200, and 2,000 would be 2000. Be careful, however, to say 20 for 20, and never 20. Liang itself is also a unit of weight, the Chinese ounce, and is commonly used when weighing gold or Chinese herbal medicine. For example, 1两, 1 ounce, 2两, 2 ounces. Although 2两is also possible for 2 ounces, Chinese seem to prefer 2两to avoid any confusion. Here is our color chart with today's 6 characters and their correct stroke order. 千, 十, 2, and 两. Shang, 下. The following chart shows how these characters would appear in printed form. For those learning simplified characters, the simplified form for liang is also given. To fix the characters in your memory, copy them onto colored sheets of paper as suggested in previous videos, blue, green, pink, yellow, and white, to represent the 4 tones plus the neutral tone. Notice on the blue sheet that the character for 1 is circled, which means that it's a split sound character pronounced more than one way. The green sheet has 2 circled characters, pronounced second tone here, 一 and 不. The pink sheet has 2 underlined characters. The underline indicates that these 2 characters are pronounced exactly the same. It's important to group characters to aid in memory retention. The yellow sheet has 3 circled split sound characters pronounced fourth tone here: di, i, and bu. The white sheet has the character d, which can also be pronounced fourth tone, di. When memorizing characters, it helps to invent an oddball phrase to link these homonyms together. For example, stop the toe, and picture in your imagination no matter how crazy it seems. You could imagine a police officer pointing a gun at an enormous, menacing toe. The human brain recalls bizarre scenarios far more easily than logical ones. Try it. It's a well-known memory trick. So, what have we learned in today's lesson? 1. A horizontal line often appears in units of measurement, such as bai, qian, and liang. 2. If the phonetic component of a Chinese character sounds too far removed from the modern Mandarin pronunciation, that's because it was phonetically similar in an older dialect. 3. Due to their relative isolation, Southern Chinese dialects have retained more of the ancient pronunciations. Northern dialects have a simpler phonology with fewer syllables. 4. Ancient poems still rhyme in the Southern dialects, but less so in the Northern ones. 5. The first syllable of the medicinal root ginseng is the same character for person or human, and thus related to the phonetic compound of the character for thousand. 6. The character for 10, shi, is a pictogram of a vertical stick with markings indicating length. 7. Since we have a total of 10 fingers, the number 10, shi, indicates perfection or completeness. 8. The expression 十足 means completely, absolutely, or extremely. 9. The expression 二手 literally means second hand. 10. The characters 上 and 下 can both be used as either verbs, adverbs, or prepositions. 11. Due to the different materials used in making books in China and the West, the prepositions are also different. Read something in a book in English, on a book in Chinese. 12. The expression 上书 in Chinese is similar to submit a petition in English, in that both imply a person of lesser social status handing something up to a superior. 13. The phrase 一下 is a soft-sounding expression for suggesting an easy, momentary action. 14. Together, 上下 indicate an approximate number, not an exact figure. 15. The character for 2 with measure words and large numbers is liang, a pictogram of 2 yokes and a crossbar, which may have served as a set of scales in ancient times. 16. Although liang is used with 100, 1,000, and higher, the number 20 is always 20. 17. Liang is translated as ounce in English when it's used as a measure word or alone as a noun. Now you will find a short quiz on single, double, and triple character expressions. See how many you can recall from these 6 lessons. Thank you for watching and listening.